Today we've come for a little walk around and about the locality of Tegid, near the town of Bala, which we've just gone and had a little wander around and had a cup of coffee. I think we do skirt the edge of the town on this walk, but we're also going to visit a quarry and a few other bits and pieces. So our walk takes in a little bit of the town, I think. And we have to turn left just after the cinema down here. So this is the cinema. Let's see what it was last showing, shall we, if we can figure it out. So we go up this footpath, it looks like, up into the hills. They're reacting to Eva. Oh, quite a lot of up on this trail. Just going to stop here for a little breather and admire the view. So that's the town of Bala down there. And if we look across this field, there are house martins possibly, or maybe swifts, something like that, zipping about all over the grass, catching insects on the wing. I'm not sure how well that shows up on camera. Anyway, well, still got some more up to do, so here we go. Now it's the 1st of September and the weather is actually quite moist, but there are still some nice blackberries around. Okay, so it levels out here, lovely view across the adjacent valley. I don't know if you can tell, but it is lightly raining. This morning it was absolutely tipping it down on the way here, and I wasn't sure we were going to get any walking in at all. But as it is, this is the kind of rain that as long as you keep moving, you won't get soaked in this rain. Oh, here's the thing to stop and look at, a harebell. Campanula. So in English, this is a harebell. In Scotland, I'm not sure about Wales actually, in Scotland that would be called a bluebell. And the thing that we call a bluebell is called a harebell. But that's a harebell in England. But we're not in England, we're in Wales. So I don't know what they call it here. If you know what they call it here, do let me know in the comments. Got some heather here on the left. Wow, look at those blackberries. And if they're still quite firm, yeah, some of them are a little bit mushy now. Yeah, I probably won't pick these. This is on the shady side of a hill, so yeah, these are a bit squishy. I'm sure they'd be fine, but they're just a bit squishy. We might not get them home in one piece. I'm surprised I haven't seen any bilberry foliage here, because this is exactly the kind of place you'd see it, but I'm not seeing any bilberries, he says. And then we immediately see bilberry foliage. Here it is. This is bilberry foliage, Vaccinium myrtillus, the British, well, Northern European low bush blueberry. I think we're a bit late in the year to find any fruit. There's a little withered bilberry on there, not worth eating. So yeah, I think we're a bit late in the season to find any bilberries, but that's where they would be. I will keep looking, because sometimes you find a little microclimate that's a little bit cooler and a little bit later on than the rest. Like here, the foliage is still a lot greener here, so we have a chance of maybe finding a bilberry. Doesn't look like it. I think we are just too late. I will just check my hands for ticks after doing that. Yeah, I think we're too late for bilberries. That's a shame. Yeah, I'm very surprised actually, because usually when you find a little shady spot like this that's a little bit greener, so it hasn't started to turn the red autumn colours of the bilberries, you sometimes find the odd berry, but it doesn't look like we're going to be in that kind of luck today. Shame, I wanted to show you one, but never mind. There are other videos where I've picked bilberries, so I will link to those if you're curious about what these would be if they were fruiting. Look at all the sloes on these bushes here. It's been an exceptionally good year for sloes and plums and cherries, but look at those. Oh, we've got crab apples here as well, and these are true crab apples. These aren't just a seedling feral apple. This is a true wild crab apple tree, and that's about as big as they get. They'd be very, very sour, but good for making jelly or preserving in drinks and whatnot. Oh, look at that view. I'm not very sure the majesty of these views translates to camera, especially GoPro, which is the reason that, you know, why, if you can, you really need to get out here and enjoy the spectacle of nature and the countryside firsthand, because there's no camera that can really do it justice. We will just stop and have a look here. Hazelnuts, still not completely ripe, but again, it's been a really good year for hazelnuts as well. In fact, for pretty much everything on a tree this year, it's been a phenomenal fruiting year. Another crabapple tree there, and you can tell this is a crabapple. This is not a cultivated apple, or this is not a seedling from a cultivated apple. This is just a wild crabapple. This is exactly what they look like. Little green apples, sometimes a little bit flushed with pink, as here. Sometimes a little bit russeted, but just tiny green apples in great abundance. That's the wild crabapple. Sometimes the tree is a little bit thorny. Actually, it's not exactly thorns, it's a bit like the thorns on blackthorn, where you get little stubs of the branches that don't develop, or maybe haven't developed yet, but they're almost like thorns. So sometimes crabapple trees can be a bit thorny, or seem thorny. Now these here aren't sloes, these are either bullaces or damsons. Let's have a look. I would say bullaces and damsons are the same thing, by the way. They're just different varieties of the same species. I would say those are bullaces, owing to their shape. They're spherical. Damsons tend to be a bit bigger than that and oval. These are actually ripe. I wonder what they're going to taste like. It's very soft. Here goes. Probably still quite bitter, so let's see. Actually, no. That's really sweet. That's delicious. Just a tiny, very sweet plum. So yeah, bullaces, I would say. Not all of them are quite as ripe as that one, but that was a nice specimen. You can tell because they're just yielding and soft. And they were back to sloes again. And this is a very, very scrubby, snaggy, compact sloe bush. Tiny, tiny sloes. So there's a bullis and there's a sloe comparison side by side. You can see which is which. Bullises, the trees are not normally thorny and they've got bigger leaves. Sloes usually have much smaller leaves, and the bushes are always thorny and usually compact like this, usually all gnarled and contorted and compact like this. This is a very typical sloe. Actually, well, this is a bit of an extreme sloe, but typically gnarled and thorny. And as I say, bullis is a much more open tree with no thorns, larger leaves, and larger, sweeter fruits. If we tried eating one of those sloes, it would be incredibly bitter. And here's hawthorn. tiny berries actually for hawthorn. I've seen much bigger berries than this year. So that's hawthorn, also edible. The berries can be cooked and made into sauces and jellies and things like that. So this is a proper foraging hedgerow here. We've got hazelnuts. There's rowan as well, I can see in there. We can't see any berries. There are bullaces. We saw sloes as well. Here's a better hawthorn coming up. In fact, we've got, so there's rowan up there, that's mountain ash. Those are rowan berries, also again edible once they're properly prepared. But these are some nicer hawthorn fruits, not technically berries. They are a pome like apples and pears. They grow from a different part of the plant structure to berries, and so they're not berries. But anyway, yes, later in the year those could be cooked into sauces or whatever. So hawthorn, some more rowan up there, some very big hazelnuts. You can see these a mile off. Look at that, really nice big hazelnuts. No point picking them off the tree, they won't be ready inside. You have to wait till they fall, and usually a squirrel will beat you to it. But maybe this year there's such an abundance of nuts and fruit, it might be there's some left over for the humans. So the reason all of these trees, all these different fruiting, valuable foraging trees are here is obviously somebody's planted a hedge, and it's very common to see hedges planted of those trees we've been looking at, broad-leafed fruiting trees. They're quite easy to raise from seed, and so raising a whole bunch of saplings for hedging is quite simple with those species. There's the ruin of an old cottage here. I'll have a look over the wall. Not very much to see, but this was probably just one room. Perhaps a fireplace up at one end. I can't actually see where the hearth would have been, so maybe it was in that back wall there that's missing. Minimally cemented walls. Doorway here. Another door there. There might have been a partition wall. This might have been two. Yes, in fact, I think I see remains of a partition. So this might have either just been two cottages for shepherds or something. So literally one room in which you cook and eat, and then perhaps a loft for sleeping. Or it could be that there was living quarters and shelter for sheep in really bad weather, so a barn for the sheep to all get huddled in here, and the shepherd lived in the other side, or actually in one big space, and the bedroom was upstairs, and the warmth of the livestock was your heating system. Lunch today: cheese, cabanossi and nuts. I've also got some fruit and a packet of crisps. So this is the quarry where local stone was dug and extracted for building some of the buildings of the town. It's quarry caves. That is interesting. I'm not going in. The reason there's all this loose stuff on the floor of the cave here is because it's fallen off the roof of the cave. It does look a particularly well constructed mine with supporting columns, but I am sufficiently risk averse not to want to go in there and explore that. But anyway, there's a good look at it. Looks like it goes down that way a little way, and there is almost like a watercourse inside of it.
I think it's the chapel in town and some other buildings as well.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, in Bala. Yeah.
We'll have a look at that if we get a chance on the way through the town. And Yeah, that's where the rock came from. A little bit surprising they didn't just go straight down, but I suppose the rock nearer the surface is more broken up, and so if they wanted nice solid blocks they'd have to go under the surface a bit. I imagine they must have started where we're standing and worked back, and then just realised that really the stuff they wanted was down underneath the overburden. It actually carries on a bit further than I thought, so it goes all the way this way as well. So that's where we were, and all the way down here. And all the way down there. And all of this stuff here is just the loose material that's been dug out to get at the good rock underneath. Yeah, I assume it's just, it might have been a different kind of rock actually underneath there, although it looks like the same stuff. The pillars are the same material as the overburden, but you can see the overburden, the top part is all fractured, whereas the bits they were digging down into would have been larger blocks, such as we're seeing here. Fascinating. So I'm assuming in a minute we'll see a reasonably well-made track where they carted all of this stone down to the town. Yeah, it carries on all the way down here, look. Amazing. Eva, not going in there. Come here, you. Yeah, our theory here is that because you can see the bedding planes of the rock are inclined there, so there's a slant that it comes up here. We think they probably started quarrying up here and extracting rock and just didn't stop. And it wasn't maybe worth having that rock on the top so much as it was the better stone underneath. And so they just went in and got the larger blocks from underneath. That's our theory. We haven't researched this at all, of course. And I think we'll probably find down here, there'll probably be a cart track down here where the stone was removed. You can definitely see it flattens out here. This track is surfaced with broken up stone, and it's level. And it's flattened off. Yeah, look at that, it still goes in there. Amazing. It does look like that was maybe fenced off all at one point there. There's a whole load of fencing. Looks like that might have been fenced off to keep people out. Anyway, so yeah, this looks like it would have been the route down to the town. Down here, which is our walking route, but you can see that there's a kind of flattened path here that goes down the side of this hill. In fact, you can almost see, I don't think it comes up on camera, but there's a depressed track here, and you can almost see the ruts that would have been carved by the cart wheels. Slight bank to my right, but a very gentle bowl-shaped cutting all the way down the side here, and just to my eye the very, very slight suggestion of where the two ruts might have been, where the cartwheels dug in. Lots of down now, down this steep lane. Oh yeah, past the football field and the school. So hopefully when we get down to the town we might see one of the buildings that was made with that quarried stone. Right, so this is the church that was built from the rock that was quarried up the hill. And yeah, you can see the blocks they've been able to get large rectilinear blocks out of the quarry, whereas a lot of the other houses made from the local stone are made from bits and pieces that are far less regular than this. So this is a more typical construction of local stone. You can see it's lovely stone, but it's very irregular. It's lots of different pieces, some of it weathered, some of it quite fractured. But the stone that they quarried to build the church, they went and picked the best stone and cut it into perfectly rectangular blocks. This is more of the normal architecture, the normal local stone. And there's nothing at all wrong with this stone. It's beautiful. But when they built the church, they wanted to use the very best. So here's another one, possibly from the same quarry. And I think this used to be a chapel here. It's now an antiques place. Again, could be from the same quarry. Not quite so dressed stones. And interestingly, a steeple with a roof that's just a pyramid of the same stone. So that's not got tiles or slates on it. That's just a pyramid of stone up the top there. So our walk's nearly finished now. Actually, most of it wasn't by the lake, but we're now back by the River Dee, and I think this curves round and feeds into the lake. So we're going to follow it round and join it at the same place as the river does. So actually, apparently this isn't the River Dee, but we don't know what river it is. But it branches down here, and a little bit of it goes off to be the infant River Dee, something like that. Maybe. I probably need to look at a map. Right, there's the answer then. So that here is the River Llyn. It looks like this River Llyn flows mostly into the lake. I'm not quite sure which way this stretch goes here, but the River Dee comes out of the lake and flows off that way back to, well, ultimately to the sea via Chester, but via where we're staying in Llangollen. So this is the interesting bit here though. So there's water coming down here and out of there, but also out of here or into there, who knows. It looks like into. So that's going off down towards the lake. Okay, well, we'll see. So yeah, there's interestingly more water here, more flow than there is downstream at Llangollen. So I think that's waterworks over there. So I imagine some water is extracted from the river. I think it's extracted to feed a canal, but also probably extracted for purification for tap water as well. But that down there is the River Dee, which bears left, but also flows out from the eastern end of the lake. Great big fat squirrel in that tree, fat on hazelnuts. That's a hazel tree, and that squirrel is eating hazelnuts. There he goes. You like squirrels, don't you, Eva? There is something to talk about just down here, since we've been looking at berries and stuff that you can forage. So this is a berry that's technically edible. Not sure you'd want to. This is Gelder Rose, Viburnum opulus, and it has these beautiful translucent red berries. Some people do eat these. These are not quite ripe yet. They need to be completely squishy and translucent. The ones at the edges are probably almost ready, but they need another week or two. Some people do make a jelly out of this, but the whole plant has this foul smell, and certainly if you break the foliage or the wood and smell it, it has this smell almost like dog poop. And the berries are a little bit like that as well. They've got this kind of poopy smell to them until they're cooked. So when they're cooked, they can be eaten, and they make a kind of jelly, and it does lose its pungent smell mostly when it's cooked. I've never tried it, but people do use it as a substitute for cranberry sauce. So there you go. Guelder Rose, technically edible, not sure you'd want to. That, by the way, down there is the flower of a dewberry. Those are dewberries, flowering very late here. So following the River Dee back, we're back at the lake now. The Bala Lake, or Llyn Tegid. Wales's largest natural lake. So there are, I think, larger bodies of water in Wales where a valley has been dammed to create a reservoir, but this is the largest natural lake in Wales, on the edge of Snowdonia. So these hills are just hills here, but a little way away from here it's proper mountains. In fact, those look quite mountainous over there in the distance. So the weather quite changeable today and makes for some dramatic scenes on the water here. So quite choppy water, stirred up by the wind. Over there, bright sunlight. Where we are at the moment, grey. The sun hasn't quite broken through the clouds, and I can see drifts of rain coming across the lake as well. It's been the whole of this walk, I haven't been sure whether I wanted my jacket on or off, but it's been a very enjoyable walk, and we've seen some very interesting and lovely scenery on the way. So in Bala we found a lovely little butcher's shop, so I've got about 500 grams of Welsh diced lamb there. They also had some vegetables, so I've got a leek and some carrots. We've got some lovely little potatoes, butter beans. I've got my travelling spice kit. We're going to make a simple lamb stew. So cooking facilities here are a little bit limited, but we'll make the best of it. So the big ring on and this frying pan, and all of that diced lamb will go in there. Might be a little bit too much for that pan, but we'll figure it out. And I'm going to brown that and render some of that fat. While that's happening, I'll prepare the leek. So I'll trim it, I'll probably slice it down the middle and just run some water through it to get all of the grit and sand out of here. Now, because this lamb is proper lamb from a butcher, there's not been any water injected into this or anything, and so it's just browning really nicely without swimming in a bath of juice. That's the colour I'm looking for on every surface. Meanwhile, the leek, which I've now prepared, I'll just chunk that up, and the carrots, I think I might just scrub them and leave the skins on and cut them into big chunks. In my little travelling spice kit I have got a stock cube, so I'm going to make that up with some hot water in a mug. Well, can't find a jug. Browning on this meat is getting close to where I want it. I don't mind some flour to go in here, but I didn't bring flour with me on this trip. We weren't anticipating making cakes or pasties or anything this time, so I haven't got any flour. I haven't really got anything ideally suitable to put in there, sort of ground grains, but I have got some sugar-free muesli, which has got oats in it, but I've got to separate the oats out. So I think colander might be just about the right size. Well, that is making a mess, but it's also getting the job done. Those other bits can go back in the pack. So now we've just got some oats in there with those bits of lamb, and those will get a little bit toasted. They will absorb some of the fats in here, and when they go in the stew, that will thicken up the sauce. So that needs to be deglazed now, and that can go in there. And despite this being a non-stick pan, there is some stuff to deglaze there. So some Welsh ale, just use that to get the fond off of the, well, it's not really a fond, but there are some little bits of fond on the pan. Get that off there. As soon as that comes to a simmer, that can go in the pan as well. Okay, there we go. So carrots can just go straight in with the lamb, cut really nice and chunky because they're going to simmer for a while. But the leeks I want to fry. Butter I do have, so I gave that pan a little wipe round. So we're starting afresh with that. And I'll just fry those until translucent, just to take some of the harsh, oniony vibes off. In the pan here, I've got mixed herbs from my spice kit. About a quarter of a teaspoonful. Black pepper. Just a little pinch. And then the stock. And that probably isn't quite enough liquid, so I'll top it off with a bit more from the kettle. And while those leeks are just cooking a little bit, I will cut the potatoes. Actually, I will do no such thing, because those potatoes can just go in exactly as they are. Skins and everything, they're just going to go in whole on the top of the stew, and they will cook in the time that that lamb takes to boil tender. Right, I think those leeks have had enough frying now. So those will go in there. And then that pan will go on there to come to the boil. And then it will need to be simmered for probably about 45 minutes until the lamb is tender. That probably won't take very long to come to the boil because all the liquids that went in there were hot. Potatoes on the top. Lid on. Bring to the boil. Simmer for 45 minutes. I think we should give this beer a little taste while we're waiting for the stew to cook. So this is Orm Bitter from Snowdonia Craft Beer. Beautifully crystal clear red-brown ale. Smells malty. Quite hoppy and bitter on the front end. Treacly sort of malts and a sweet finish. Oh, that's nice. I mean, I like all kinds of beer, but that's good. And I think a little bit of that in the stew will just give it a bit of depth and body that it might not have enjoyed otherwise. Not sponsored, by the way, I just happen to like it. Right, we are about 5 minutes shy at the end of cooking here, so two things are going to happen here. One is I'm going to steal one of these potatoes and take that out here. The other is I've got some butter beans, just canned butter beans. Those are going to go in. Because they're canned, obviously they don't need any additional cooking really, they just need to be brought up to temperature. So I will just turn that back up because those went in cold. This potato, using the supplied masher, I'm just going to smash it. Extract all of the little bits from the potato masher. No, I don't probably need to do that because what I can do is just put it in there. Give it a little jiggle about. This smashed up potato is just going to go back in there with the intention of just adding a bit of thickening to that stew. So that will just help to thicken that all up. I tested the meat. The meat is actually quite tender now. So lid back on. About 5 minutes more simmering, and then we'll be ready to serve. Right then. Pick out the potatoes first since they're whole. So after a day of climbing up hills and poking our noses into quarries and getting windswept on the shore of the big old lake, what could be nicer than a hearty bowl of stewed Welsh lamb? Plenty of leftovers there as well. And for me, I think just a bit more black pepper. And what could be nicer than sitting here on the banks of the beautiful River Dee to enjoy my Welsh lamb stew. I should probably say stewed Welsh lamb, because I don't know if this is very authentic. I mean, it's got leeks and lamb in it, and we're in Wales, it's Welsh lamb, but I'm not claiming this is a Welsh recipe. It is, however, very good, and this lamb is so tender you can cut it with a spoon. A delicious end to actually a really fulfilling day. So it does make me wonder, because we're by the River Dee here, the same River Dee that we visited upstream, up at the lake. In the time it took us to drive home and then cook the lamb stew, has the water that passed us upstream made its way down here yet? I think the answer is probably no, because the river doesn't follow anything like a direct route to get here. And yeah, we drove back, well, it's 20 miles an hour through many of the villages, but we drove back at probably an average speed of about 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour, taking the fast bits and slow bits together. So this river's flowing at maybe half a mile per hour. So yeah, I think the water that passed us up at the lake is still to arrive. But it's an interesting thing to ponder. So thanks for joining us on this walk around the vicinity of Bala today. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.